Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa. I am Ruth Van Lillian, the minister. We welcome you to this covenantal community founded on love and a commitment to our free faith. Amidst the beauty of autumn turning, let us welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us this morning. We are so glad that you are here. We invite you to connect with us in the comments below or via our website or Facebook page. We join with all members of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We bear witness to the pain and suffering of persons of color in our communities and across our country, and we continue in our commitment to fight injustice and to search for ways to build a better world. Black Lives Matter.
Good morning. I'm Anna Schubert, the lay service leader for today. There is a link in our order of service in the video description below, along with other useful information. If you are viewing from a smart TV, you may not be able to see the links and comments below. In that case, you can access the links and comments by going to the UU Congregation of Tuscaloosa YouTube channel through the YouTube app on your smartphone, tablet, or personal computer. There are a number of important announcements in the order of service, so be sure to check. Our church website and Facebook page have information about our online activities. Also, members and friends should read all the Newsnet emails and our monthly newsletter to stay updated on congregational matters. We also invite you to our online Zoom coffee hour immediately following this service so that we may join together in real time for community and fellowship. See the link in the links and comments below or in the Newsnet email. The prelude prepares us for the service.
We invite you to light a chalice of your own at home. This might be a simple candle in a bowl or something more elaborate that you've made or purchased. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We worship together, though we are at a distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively.
Our opening words today are from Christina Feldman, and they're about joy. We are sensual beings, and sensual joy is not to be disdained. It teaches us much about our heart's capacity for joy. Nature is a remarkable ally in teaching us the simplicity of gladness. In moments when joy seems far away from us, we can remind ourselves to step outside, go into a garden, a park, even in the midst of a city, turn our eyes to the sky, and simply stop, listen, and breathe. Let your senses simply attend to the clouds moving through the sky. Hear the rustle of the wind in the tree branches. See the light on the grass. What is it for us to sense without words, receiving the natural world with sensitivity? We learn to allow ourselves a moment of wonder, knowing the seasons of nature, their beginnings and their endings, are mirrors for the seasons of our own lives. In stillness, we sense what it is to receive the world, to listen, to see, and to attend, and we make room for joy. Thank you.
When we gather in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I will light a candle in my home as you light a candle in yours, and we will observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and burdens in the comments below and engage with each other in celebration and condolences. I will now light a final candle for all those burdens and celebrations shared in our virtual spaces and for those that went unspoken. May the warm light of these flames bring us peace.
Let us spend a moment in silence, and I'll close us with a few words. When life is chaotic, let us seek calm. When life is noisy, let us seek quiet. When life is uncertain, let us remember what we know. We know that we are connected in this community, that even apart, we are still together. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
Hello. Today's story for all ages is You Are My Happy by Hoda Kotb. The night is near, today is done. It's time for bed, my fuzzy one. Let's cuddle up, one kiss, one hug. Let's settle down, my snuggle bug. What made us happy all day through? Let's count those things, just me and you. For babies bursting out of eggs, for standing up on wobbly legs, for growing tall, for lucky breaks, and even learning from mistakes. That's what made me happy. For special friends who made me giggle and silly songs that made me wiggle. For space to play, for shade to rest, for secret spots we love the best. That's what made me happy. For being brave, for brand new wings, for the joy that flying brings. for splashes together in the lake, for cozy nests our mamas make. That's what made me happy. For twinkling lights that say goodnight, for nestling babies cuddled tight. Every night and all day through, the one I'm thankful for is you. You are my happy.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Out of gratitude for all we have been given and all we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust each other, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make a world a better place. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the payment of pledges and the generous donations to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made by PayPal, by using the link below in the description, or mailing checks to UUCT. All undesignated contributions will be divided between our Split the Plate recipient organization and our congregation. Our Split the Plate partner for this month will be shown on the screen as you are listening to this. Please mark your pledge payments to UUCT in the comments field on PayPal or the memo line of your check. If you prefer to write a check to the selected organization, please mail it directly to the address we include in the description of this video. The offertory music will continue in this window as you open a new window to make your contributions. By the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts, our love is made real. Thank you for your gifts.
Good morning. It's good to be with you all this morning. My name is Lynn Snow, and I thought I'd talk to you some this morning about the Zen of Joy. And I chose this topic because we're, I guess, 7 to 8 months into the pandemic, and I think we're all having a collective experience of feeling pretty tired, a little bit frazzled, like our bandwidth has been stretched to the limit, and we're looking forward to the election to winter to the holidays, and it can feel like a lot. And with all that stress, I'm wondering about joy and how joy could be helpful to us, and wondering about practices of finding joy and cultivating joy. And so I wanted to talk to everyone today a little bit about that topic. One of the really interesting things about joy is that we tend to think of joy and sorrow, joy and suffering as polar opposites and maybe mutually exclusive. So I'm going to be quoting a little bit from a book today by Christina Feldman, who is a Vipassana meditation teacher. And she wrote a book called Boundless Heart, and it has a whole chapter about joy. And so I've been finding that helpful, and then I'll also explore some ideas from some additional teachers. But one of the things that Christina points out is that joy really isn't a denial of sorrow, as she says, an artificial contrivance, but instead it's more of a inclination of our hearts that softens and eases the difficult, is what she says. And she points out that we do tend to polarize these states. She says the welcome and the unwelcome, the desirable and the undesirable, this tendency to welcome and pursue the pleasant and to disdain and avoid the unpleasant and unwelcome is an understandable pursuit, but it's a recipe for a frustrated and agitated life. And that we tend to believe that if sorrow and depression are present, joy must necessarily be absent. And if joy is present, all happiness and anxiety will be forgotten. And so her teachings and the teachings of some other meditation folks is that maybe we can hold both. Maybe we can have joy and discover joy even in the midst of suffering, which I find a really hopeful and important idea, because it seems pretty impossible to get rid of suffering. And so I am always curious about, here, right in this moment, no matter how stressful it is there some joy happening right now? I have a personal curiosity about, could it be true that in any moment that there is both an experience of joy and an experience of stress or sorrow or suffering, and that maybe one of the things we can do with our minds is to identify where that joy is when it's if it's always present, and even in times of sorrow and suffering, maybe we can touch that joy as well. I'm wondering if maybe it's like a battery that we can hook into and get a little bit of energy as well as enjoyment. So it's positive, it feels good, and also maybe it energizes us and allows us to keep going and to do the things that we believe in, that we think are so important, allows us to do our social justice work, to care for each other, to show up for our families, to continue to be compassionate and kind. So those are some things I'm really curious about today and wanting to explore with you. One of the interesting things about our brains and the way that our brains are set up is that from an evolutionary perspective, we seem to be hardwired to have a very easy time noticing the negative and remembering it. So it really gets imprinted in our memories, but have a much harder time noticing and remembering the positive. And this is a really profound effect that it has been substantiated in research across different kinds of studies in the social science realm. There's a really interesting paper by Roy Baumeister and his research colleagues that was published in the Review of General Psychology in 2001 called Bad is Stronger Than Good, that detailed this finding across a wide variety of different types of research studies. And from an evolutionary perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. When we live in dangerous environments, it really promotes survival. When we are very sensitive to signs of danger, things that are negative, and it's probably not as important for our survival in those very dangerous environments to notice the beautiful sunset or that flower or the birds in the sky. But for our long-term survival in this modern world, being able to notice the good and to calm ourselves and to enjoy what's around us is probably really critical for long-term survival. We know that chronic stress has significant physical effects on us, from high blood pressure to decreased immune functioning. And so it seems like that there are a lot of good reasons to cultivate a way of the brain working that kind of goes opposite of this hardwiring that we have. The neuropsychologist Rick Hansen, who is also a meditation teacher, has a really nice way of putting it. He says that our brains are Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. So, you think of your Teflon frying pan and that egg, that fried egg that just slides off that Teflon so nicely. And that's what happens with those good experiences. So we work so hard to have a vacation, and we go on that vacation, and we're on the beach, and we're seeing this beautiful sunset. And then we find what we're thinking about is how our expensive dinner was overcooked, or how stressful it's going to be to have to go back to the office in 2 days, and how far behind we're going to be, or how we're just loving the sunset so much and wishing we could have it with us always, and already feeling sad that our vacation's going to end. So there are all these ways that even in the midst of beauty and enjoyment, we have a hard time staying there and really enjoying that. So I thought it'd be fun today to do a little mindfulness practice together, and to explore together some really small ways that we can begin to cultivate a different mindset, to begin to make our brains a little bit more Velcro for the good instead of only being Velcro for the bad. And one of the exciting things about how our brains are set up is that we can change how they work over time if we practice a new way of thinking over and over again. So in neuroscience, the saying is neurons that fire together wire together. And what that means in practice is that when we practice doing something over and over again, we literally make physical changes in our neural structure. The more times we do something, this neural pathway begins to be built between neurons in our brains, and it's like building a sidewalk. The more times you walk a certain path, the smoother that path becomes, the easier it is to walk on that path, the more likely you are to walk on that path. And it just becomes more and more likely that you'll be able to do that. It becomes easier and easier to do that, and takes less and less effort over time. So if we can have some small joy practices that we do regularly, daily, and they can be really small. I think consistency is more important than time. Then we can begin to build a new way for our brain to work, where we notice these moments of joy when they're happening, and maybe we begin to notice even more joy than we realized was around us. Have you ever seen one of those detective shows where people put on infrared glasses and they can see people moving at night, whereas without the glasses, everything is just completely dark? Maybe we can do something like that, where we start to develop our joy glasses, and we're able to see these moments of joy around us that were invisible when our brains were just Velcro for bad. So let's give this a try together, if you're willing. And so I'm going to put up a little picture here describing how I think of this little practice we're going to try. I call this a 3-minute tea break, and that stands for turn toward the positive, explore the positive, and absorb the positive. And this is just a fun little practice to kind of rewire our brain. I'll probably take about 5 minutes to get us through it, but when you learn how to do it, you can really do it in 1 minute or 3 minutes. So first, we're going to turn towards the positive. And so if you're comfortable doing so, you could close your eyes, or you could drop your gaze towards the floor and just bring some positive experience to mind. It might be something in the present moment or something from your memory. You might ask yourself, what do I find pleasant right here, right now? And it might be as small as, this room is a really nice temperature. I feel comfortable in this chair. My socks feel really cozy right now. It just feels good to be stopped and to close my eyes for a moment. Or you could ask yourself, what's something nice that's happened for me, or something that's gone well for me? It might be that you had a good lunch, or a family member or friend said something that made you feel really good, or you're proud of the way you were so patient with someone this morning. Or it could be something you're grateful for that fills you with warmth when you think of it. So if you can't think of anything, don't worry. You're going to have an opportunity to notice and pick up positive things as this exercise goes along. And now take a deep breath and notice the feeling of your feet, and say to yourself, toes touch. Notice the feeling of the pressure of the floor underneath your feet, or feel your socks or shoes touching your feet. If anything feels pleasant, no matter how small, just briefly note that and enjoy it. Now bring your attention to your belly. You can place your hands on your belly if you like and say, belly, breathe. And just feel the movement in your belly as your breath moves through it. If anything feels pleasant, briefly note that and enjoy it. And now bring your attention to your shoulders and say, shoulders soft, while you allow your shoulders and neck to relax and soften and drop towards the floor. And if anything feels pleasant, if you notice any area in your body softening and relaxing, just note that and enjoy it. Now we're going to explore the positive. So, reflecting on the experiences you've just had, say to yourself 3 things, and then list at least 3 things that you're currently finding pleasant. And they could be very small. Again, I feel the muscles in my neck relaxing. This room is at a comfortable temperature. My daughter was so sweet to me this morning. Now that you've labeled those 3 things, whether they're memories or something happening right now, on your next in-breath, bring your attention back to these 3 things that you've just noticed right now, or a positive thing you had chosen earlier, and just gather in your mind all of this positive experience that you've just listed. And try to hold these positive experiences in your mind for 3 full breaths. Perhaps explore different aspects of what you find positive or pleasant about whatever this is, but don't let your focus on these positive things slip out of your mind. Just keep renewing your focus on these positive things, like you'd keep tapping a balloon to keep it aloft, or like you'd keep blowing a pinwheel to keep it spinning. And finally, we'll absorb the positive. So for the next 3 breaths, imagine that you're absorbing all the good energy and nutritive value of this positive thing. So imagine that you're that iPhone battery plugged into a charger, and just concentrate on getting a full charge from this positive thing. You might imagine the positive experience or memory as shining its rays on you like the warm sun, or that it's surrounding you like a warm bath. Or if you're too hot right now, you can imagine it's like a cool or refreshing dip in a pool. Or you can imagine that this is like a golden dust or your favorite lotion being absorbed into your skin. And now say to yourself, I'm fully charged. This moment is enough. I am enough. And go ahead and open your eyes now and take one final breath. You might want to raise your arms above your head and give a good stretch. Maybe roll your shoulders back a couple of times. So that's a 3-minute tea break. And the idea here is to do 2 things. One is to use just 3 minutes in your day to take a little refreshment and allow yourself a rest. One of the things we know about joy is it's much easier to find joy when we make room for joy. So when we just allow things to be quiet, even for as short as 1 minute or 3 minutes, we're much more likely to be sensitive to and notice the joy around us. And then the other thing we're doing is we're practicing this Velcro for the good. We're practicing being able to notice even the smallest pleasures and to enjoy those. And we're also working against that default mechanism of our brains being Teflon for the good by holding that good experience in our brain and rehearsing it over and over, which makes it much more likely that we absorb it and it positively affects us, and that it'll be with us throughout the day. So I'll be really interested to hear how that was for you and if you enjoyed doing that. And and how that goes for you if you give that a try throughout the day and throughout the next week. The Sufi poet Rumi has a lovely short poem about joy. He says, "Submit to a daily practice. Your loyalty to that practice is a ring at the door. Keep knocking, and the joy inside will eventually open a window and look out to see who's there." So I really love that, and maybe that is some motivation for all of us to try out a daily joy practice or a several times a day joy practice like the one I just described, and see if we can just begin to discover a taste for joy, just make room for joy. One of the interesting things about joy and emotion in general is that we don't seem to, as humans, have direct control over our emotions. So if we're feeling lousy, it often does not work well to just say, I don't want to feel sad. I'm not going to feel sad. Sadness, go away. Or I'm not going to feel mad. I'm not going to feel stressed. And it often doesn't work very well to say, I will be happy now. I will be full of joy. So I want to point out that when I suggest that we do a joy practice, I'm not saying that we should do this with grim determination. We should do this with ease, and we should avoid using this as another stick to beat ourselves up with. And instead, this is a tool for us. So maybe instead of thinking about a joy practice as we're trying to create joy, that we think of this instead as that we are creating a space for joy to arise, that we're creating a space in which we notice the joy that's already there. So this naturally arising joy, that we become more sensitive to it. I think of getting some goo or oil on your hands, and how then it's hard to feel things. And so maybe what we're doing is we're trying to get rid of some of that goo from the stress of the day, and just refresh ourselves a little bit, and then become more sensitive to the joy that's around us. So I'd also like to share a quote from another teacher that I think is very interesting. And this is from Dan Layton, Taigen Dan Layton, who is a Zen teacher. And he has an interesting quote that he has translated from the 13th century Soto Zen founder from Japan, Eihei Dogen. And Eihei Dogen refers to mindfulness or meditation as the gate of great ease and joy. And that is Taigen Layton's translation of the medieval Japanese, is the gate of great ease and joy. So again, it's this idea that we're not tensing up and trying to make something happen, but we're approaching this practice with a sense of restfulness and ease. And Taigen Layton also points out that another translator has translated the same passage not as joyful ease, but as repose and bliss. And Layton says, isn't this word repose so interesting? So what if we think of that instead of repose and bliss, if we think of that as repose, like we're repositioning ourselves. So in thinking about having some short daily joy practices, I think that's a really interesting term, because it is like we're stepping back, we're reposing, we're resettling, repositioning ourselves. And maybe as we do that, then we can find our true place and be at peace with ourselves without thinking that we need to get something else or we need to try to be someone else. So he says, we allow ourselves to be the human being that we are right now. And this is true joyful ease. So from this position, we repose in that pose of mindfulness, and we find our deep rest from settling not into our ideas or attachments, but into what we actually experience as we're willing to face our own body and mind. And then he quotes another 12th century poet, Chinese poet Hongzhi, who says, just resting is like the great ocean accepting hundreds of streams, all absorbed into one flavor. So let's try that for the next week. Let's try to have these periods where we just rest and like the ocean, we just accept what arises and see if we can become more sensitive to and discover what was perhaps invisible, naturally rising joy that's around us right now. And I'll just end by saying that we can also think of a little 1-minute joy practice as something I like to think of as joy in threes. And so if you'd like to try one more with me right as we end, if you'd like to close your eyes, feel free, or drop your gaze. And we'll start with 3 body position check-ins. So we'll again start by saying toes touch and just noticing how it feels as our feet are touching the ground. And then we'll say belly breathe. Just notice what's happening in our bellies. Shoulders soft. Just noticing our shoulders. And then we'll do 3 sensation check-ins. And so we might, if we're in a place where things might smell good, we might say nose smell. And just notice any smells or lack of smells. And if there's something enjoyable there, we can notice that. Or we can just enjoy the feeling of the breath coming in and out. We could close our eyes and say, ears here, and just notice any silence, any pleasant sounds, or just the joy of having ears that are working. And then open your eyes and look around, and what's the first thing you notice that you find pleasant in even a small way? Oh, I've always really liked that bookcase I bought for myself. This is a really great computer monitor I have. I'm glad that my wall is this color. I find this shade of light yellow to be really soothing. Whatever it is, something really small. And finally, 3 small pleasure check-ins. So right now, just list 3 small things that you enjoy. No matter how small they are, just something you find pleasant right now. Inside your body, looking around. Things you appreciate, things you're grateful for. So I'll give some examples. I've always loved this thermos. It keeps my coffee nice and warm. This chair is comfortable, easy to sit in. I'm glad to be here with you. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's very comfortable. I'm glad to have all of my parents living in town. Grateful that they're healthy. Thinking of some of my friends. just whatever pops into your mind, just 3 things. And then you can just keep those in your mind for 3 breaths. And then we can end with 3 stretches if you like. So just stretching up, rolling your shoulders back. I'm going to do a couple of stretches with my neck. That always feels good. So here's what we just did. We did what I call joy in 3s. And you could just do one of these, 3 body position check-ins, 3 sensation check-ins, 3 small pleasure check-ins, 3 small pleasure repetitions, 3 deep breaths, 3 stretches. So I hope you enjoy playing with some of these practices this week and approach this as a game. Where can you find joy? And what happens next? And I look forward to hearing more about how your joy games go. And thank you for letting me be with you today.
Please read with me the words at the bottom of your screen. As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
Our closing words are from the Zen teacher Norman Fisher in his book, Trainings on Compassion, which is an exploration of the Lojong, the Tibetan Buddhist mind training practice using slogans. One of those slogans is maintain joy and don't lose your sense of humor. So Norman wonders, how is practicing the slogan maintain joy possible? Your mind is going to be joyful or it's not. How could you cause it to be joyful when you're in a bad mood? How could you keep your sense of humor when things are going badly? And then he observes, when through mindfulness practices and joy practices, that you've developed a habitual culture of awareness in your life, when the empty or boundless nature of things is always close at hand and is something you think about, that's when impermanence is no longer something you hate, and it's your good friend. And that, yes, is when it's possible to maintain joy and humor most of the time.